everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Making a Difference in Mental Health. I'm Danielle.
I'm Wendy.
Wendy, I'm so excited about this episode today.
I've been waiting.
I know. This is for our Men's Mental Health Awareness Month, and we have a wonderful panel of men today to discuss
Men in sports,
men's sports and mental health, right?
Right. And we're talking about my favorite sport today.
Football.
Football.
So what we'd like to do before we even get started is we want everyone to just introduce yourself and give us just a little bit of a snippet about yourself.
Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate you taking the time to talk about mental health within men in sports. Hi, my name is Mike Harrison. I've been with ABH for over 3 years. I work in the finance department. I coach high school football, been coaching football for 15 plus years. I also coach rec basketball, and then I coach youth football.
Thanks, Mike.
Good to see you, Mike.
Hello, Danielle. Hello, Wendy. How are you guys?
Hi, Udoka.
Yeah, my name's Udoka Ahaghotu. I'm a licensed mental health therapist working in Greenbelt, Maryland through ABH. I'm also a former athlete, which again is kind of funny to say because I played sports for such a brief amount of time in high school. I ran track and I played football. And honestly, I like to think I was like average at best. But in addition to that, I also worked as a phys ed teacher for about 2 years, working with elementary age kids all the way up until 6th grade. I was also in charge of a lot of sports programming at the YMCA within Bethesda, mainly working within basketball clinics.
Thanks, Udoka.
Thank you.
Hello, Danielle and Wendy. Thank you for having me. My name is Chad King Wilson. I'm an educator in Montgomery County, Maryland, 17 years. I'm also the head football coach at Watkins Mill High School. I've coached football and track and field in the county for 17 years as a throwing coach and also strength and conditioning coordinator. I also coach my son's flag football team in Frederick, Maryland, and I also was a former Division I football player at St. Francis University.
Oh, great. Thanks, Chad.
Massive.
Hello, Danielle, Wendy. My name is Terrell Holliday. I'm an IT senior manager with the IRS. I've been coaching football since 1998. Started out in youth, went to high school in 2016 or 15, 16. Also used to coach AAU basketball with Mike. Our sons used to play together. You know, for me, goal and ambitious. In ambition, I help young football players in high school get to college. That's what I do.
That's really cool. Thank you, gentlemen, so much for being here today. We want to go ahead and get the conversation started. I'm going to toss it over to Wendy to get to the first question.
Sure. I'm excited because not only are you talking about football, but there are track coaches here, and I was a track star.
Yes.
I ran track at Churchill, and I ran track at UVA. So my two favorite sports, love to hear about it. So let's get it started. How many of you on the panel know about June being Men's Mental Health Month?
Udoka.
Okay, see, a lot of men don't know this. And so I think that's why it's important that we're having this discussion today, especially around sports, because sports are so huge for our young kids and our youth and our young adults. So we wanted to get into talking about that. And so what does mental health mean to all of you on the panel? Anybody can jump in.
I just say the state of mind, your well-being. And basically of how you feel. It could be the well-being of your mood, your thinking, or how you act.
For me, mental health is all about, emotions, and it's kind of building character. And what I mean by that is now day and age, we're all on a microscope. With coaching, you're always dealing with different personalities. So for me, it's kind of identifying the state of the state of mind of the athlete that you are coaching or you are / unquote mentoring in that aspect of guiding them through different phases.
Okay, that's really good.
Yep, state of mind.
Yeah, to kind of pick
The mental game. Go ahead.
To kind of piggyback off of what Mike said, yeah, I think I always frame it in terms of thoughts, feelings, and emotions, right? I think within all aspects of life, those things come up, right? Those are things that we have to navigate. And I think the topic on men, sports, and mental health, right? I think to a large degree, we're kind of socialized to not engage with those things, to not uh, feel that it's okay to have those things. So I think when it comes to sports, we do have to navigate our thoughts, feelings, and emotions. So when I think about mental health, it's just how you manage those things within the different aspects of your life.
I agree with what everybody said. I'm also gonna add the social well-being is so important nowadays for athletes in general. It's like mental health is, how we react, how we think, how we process, how we feel, but also how we handle stress and how we handle relationships and how we relate to different people and things. I think it's one thing that's been devalued. Mental health has been devalued in men. We have this social pressure to always appear strong, always appear resilient. I know in the football realm right there, you have young kids that are playing football, and you get that first hit and it hurts. I'll tell you right now.
Yeah.
But a kid might cry, and you have
Mhm.
people yelling at him, telling him, "Oh, suck it up, be a man,"
Yeah.
things like that. And I'll tell you, athletes, it's okay to show emotion, and like Mike said, it's how you control it, but it's also that stress that other people put on you to be great, and sometimes, a lot of times, you put on yourself.
This is all really good. I know I kind of want to shout out Udoka right now because we did a podcast on, I think it was last season or maybe
Right.
season 2, where some of the same themes are coming up. I mean, Chad, you mentioned something really good, and Mike as well, as far as having to kind of either hide or, not really tapping into the spectrum of emotions for men. And then when you add sports on top of that, I know, or I've heard, listen, I'm not a
It's
sports
an
person
extra
at all.
burden.
Like,
It's an extra burden.
I'll watch the sports for different reasons, but being able to channel the emotions into, I guess, football or basketball or different plays.
Mhm.
But also the question as we move forward, you all are coaching, you have these little ones who are becoming young men and, going into adulthood. What is the importance of mental health when it comes to translating that to your kids, to the high schoolers or to the elementary or middle schoolers that you work with?
Or even beyond,
Right.
because you might have some high schoolers in your camp that, definitely want to make it to the pro athletes, the pro level. And so how does that all work and fit into your style of coaching and teaching, et cetera?
I had a student athlete of mine to just get a full scholarship to go play football. And he walks up to me during practice and said, "Coach Wilson, you need to go full Buddy Stevens." And Buddy Stevens is a coach that was like, last chance you would be yelling and all this stuff. And I told him, that doesn't make a great football player. That doesn't motivate you any more than, which I need them. So I always tell them two things. I always say, control the controllables. Things that you can't control in your life, you can't control them. So you can control attitude, effort, and you can control showing up every day. And I also try to treat my student athletes what I call the glove method, right? I used to have an older coach who mentored me and said, you need a velvet glove and a pillow. And sometimes you got to use the glove and push them a little further, but you also have to be willing to use that pillow that they have that place to go to when mentally they might not be there that day. And it happens to all of us, happens in work. But I mean, it's something that I think society is doing a better job working through, but we still have a long way to go when it comes to young men and their mental health because they still are dealing with stressors and being told to suck it up.
Right. So I wanted to kind of also add on to what Chad is saying. I think it's interesting that a comfort level for an athlete might be the anger or the aggression. And I like, Chad, how you talked about the pillow. Maybe sometimes talking about the desire to, kind of be able to expose either sadness, like you said, sometimes they cry or sometimes they feel sad. And it's almost easier to channel or to discuss or talk about anger
Right.
or frustration than it is to talk about, you know, those sad feelings, or like you said, Chad, being told to suck it up. Do any of you all experience that with the kids that you coach, or how are you balancing that out? I know this might not be part of the main questions, but how are you balancing that out for your kids and letting them know, hey, not just anger, it's okay to express maybe disappointment or sadness, and how you can navigate through that? Anyone else on the panel? Right. Anyone else on the panel? What do you do in those instances?
I think the biggest thing is, like for me, like I said, coaching and playing in the 90s and then coaching, late 90s. Back in those days, it was like you gotta have tough guy mentality. It was no crying. There's no crying in football. That's what they tell you. We didn't. It was like one of those things. You took water breaks. You were weak.
Oh
And
man.
Yes.
and all, and all those things. And so, like with today's world, and thank goodness for me, I have a 17-year-old that keeps me grounded and makes me vulnerable. So I can relate to the kids. Is you got to understand that you can't coach how you was grown, how you grew up being coached. You know what I mean? Because society has changed, mindsets has changed, and you can't coach every kid the same. You have to get to learn your kids and understand personalities, their backgrounds, their home life. Because if I'm constantly, you may have a kid that you're dealing with, he gets yelled at home all the time. So you're trying to yell at him. So that's just outside noise for him, So you just got to know your kids,
I think,
and
Terrell, that is the best point that you made. Because football historically is, that whole method of screaming, cursing, yelling, you're weak, no water, that just makes you stronger, bigger, et cetera, doesn't work anymore because kids are so different. So as a coach, a teacher, a leader, being able to know your kids, as you said, and how to communicate with them and coach them, I think is so important to their mental health. Like, gone are the days that it's just one style. Right. To get kids motivated. So,
and Terrell, you also bring up a good point too, that we have to understand more than just football is happening in these kids' lives. Sometimes, and I can only imagine as a clinician, sometimes therapy is where the kids get their peace, where they have the ability to kind of like neutralize and stabilize and be able to talk about their thoughts, feelings, and emotions, because everything else around them might be chaotic. Maybe football, and I don't know, maybe you all can kind of chime in on this as well. Maybe football is a place where there's consistency. They know that there's discipline, but there may be other things that are going on in kids' lives. And so, like you said, Terrell, we can't approach it, and maybe generationally, we can't approach it the same way that we did, 20 years ago.
Like one size fits all.
Right. Because there may be other things that are happening in these kids' lives, and they look up to you all as sometimes, big brothers or
second dad.
Second dad. Yes. Any thoughts about that before we go on to our next questions?
I mean, it's interesting because this comes up in session as a clinician, right? I see athletes, and I think the one conversation I oftentimes will have is it functional, right? Teaching them that there are different ways in which you can relate to your emotions and still be successful within sports. Right? You don't have to hold on to that anger in order to be successful. You don't have to stuff everything in order to be successful. So that's oftentimes the conversations I have with them. And I find that that's more digestible because the kids want to get to the next level, right? If we can show them that that is still attainable and you can still have space for your emotions, then I find that that is helpful.
Yeah. Very good.
That's important. So, gentlemen, with all the pressure nowadays that kids are under in terms of academics, and then also in terms of performing in a sport like football or track, how do you help them balance all of that? Do you guys experience having lots of these conversations with your players, getting them ready, of course, as Terrell said, for maybe college and pro? How do you manage those conversations? Do they come easy?
Me, it's all about, well, the way we manage it here. It's explaining them that to get to the next level, which is, college, be it Division II, Division III, in any sport, it's structure and setting your time management. So for us, we try to, well, me coaching wise, we try to make sure we set a routine. So when they come into practice, it's kind of set in tone that, we're doing this, we're doing that, we're doing this, building that mindset of, if I'm doing things with a set structure, a set tone, that when it comes to college, it just becomes natural. Because if everything's chaotic now, by the time they get to college, it's going to be chaotic there, and they won't know how to respond. Because I would say we all here, I know, fortunately, I went and played football with Chad. So when I first got to college, I would tell you this, it was an easy transition because of the way my high school coach, the way he practiced allowed us to know that it was a smooth routine, that I knew what the layout was. So I wasn't in shock and awe that, I'm here at college. The only difference is, I would say, the speed changed. For me, it was just the speed and physicality was a little bit different. But the mentality that I came into it was no different than before, because I was able to build that through my high school coach. And again, like Terrell said earlier, man, coaching has changed over the years. I remember back in the day, I had 3 days. And when we came in, it was, you stayed there at 7 o'clock and you didn't leave until 8 o'clock. You weren't leaving the school because they know if you left, you probably wasn't going to come back. So they made sure that we stayed in the school. Nowadays, I can't fathom kids being able to practice more than 2 hours outside without, going through different type of situations or different, atmospheres of, oh, I can't handle this. But at the same token, you're right. Coaching is so much different than what it was. And we're like mentors in all the sense. So it's like, I feel like I'm mentoring these kids to be young men to that next phase in their life.
So I wanted to know, like, how do you handle a kid like who comes in and then is like, oh my God, I just can't do it. It's so hard. Like, how do you handle that as coaches?
Honestly, I've never really experienced that. I think if I never saw a kid that come outward and tell you. I mean, you may see kids struggle, you know what I mean, and and try to work through things, and you have those conversations. You try to build up the character and confidence and different things like that. But I've never really seen, especially when it comes to football. Like I said, it's the mindset of kids don't want to feel weak out there,
Right.
But you may see a kid that's maybe struggling, and you may, as a coach, like, man, pull them to the side. Hey, you're doing great, to continue to work hard, and different things like that, and try to encourage them.
So yes, a more positive spin nowadays than back in the day. That's nice.
Most definitely.
I have like 2 add-on questions, because this is such an interesting conversation. And, many times my caseload is women. And the chance that there is a young man that I may work with, at a certain point, I do have to shift the young man over to a male clinician. But I have 2 questions. How are parents supporting or involved with the shift in your pupils' mentality, not just on the field, but off the field? Like, how does that coaching and mentoring transition, and how the parents are involved? And then, not that all of you have to give a story, but is there actually one story that you could give us where you saw a pupil maybe channel whatever their frustration or anger is, and you were able to talk with them about that mentality that you speak of, and then you saw a complete difference?
For me, it's all about the off season. That's how you build your relationships. For what I mean by that is, right now, football wise, we're going through 7-on-7. So by the 7-on-7 practices, the kids are coming out. I'm able to connect with last year's players, as well as the players that are now coming up from JV. And then what I mean by connecting is just having these conversations of asking them, man, how's your day? The simple of, did you watch TV last night? Or, what did you do? Are you going anywhere this weekend? By opening up that dialect, it allows that kid to get comfortable with you. And once that kid's comfortable, then I think you can see him excel in that sport, because at that point, the conversations become easy. And then when the conversations become easy, his attitude changes around you. And then you can see that attitude changes at home, because we get a couple emails. Oh man, John's doing a lot better. What did you say to them at practice? John woke up this morning, had an attitude, but today he came home all excited. And how we mentioned earlier, it's that positive reinforcement, pulling to them aside, giving them that carrot, telling them, oh man, you know what, you did great today. I love how you were in line, you set the drill up, you kind of be the coaches on the field for me. So again, it's once you build that relationship, I think the kids tend to get comfortable around you. Because I know some of these guys on the panel can tell you, when you're coaching a sport, it always feels good that once that kid graduates, that he comes back. He talks to you, he texts you, he calls you, he tells you, how life's going. Because again, to me, coaching is more building relationships, not just for that sport, but for later down the road.
Mm-hmm. I love it that we're talking about acknowledging the wins.
Yeah.
We talk about that a lot in therapeutic setting. I know Udoka knows that it's important for parents and people who are working with kids to acknowledge when they do things that are good. And that's what we call giving them the wins for their actions and behaviors. So thanks.
Yeah, I was just a couple things popped in my head. One of our sayings in my program is win the day. And like you were just saying, the wins. I'm rebuilding a program. So, everybody wants to focus on the programs that are going undefeated and have all this talent and all that. I try to focus my kids on winning every day. So are you winning at home? Are you doing with your mom's asking you build a relationship there?
Yes.
Are you winning in a classroom? Are you doing your homework every day? You're doing that. So I measure wins differently than, I think the traditional way of measuring wins was just in the win column, right? You're a 1-8 team. You'll have people come out. Oh, you guys are horrible. And I'm like, no, because my kids have a 3.8 and my kids are going
That's
to college.
it. That's
My
right,
kids are
Chad.
going
There you
home.
go.
And so, but I also want to touch on one thing, we also look at the mental health of coaches because we are a lot of times the fathers, the uncles, the big brothers. And I know when I was a younger coach, I used to absorb a lot of the things that I had to do. I'd taken kids back to school, listening to their problems, trying to deal with their problems. But I think with coaching, there's also that collective of other coaches that you can lean on. So if you do find a child that, man, you try to relate to them, you try to do this, and you're just, there's always a bunch of other coaches around you that might be at a different school that you can call up. Like I can call up Mike and be like, Mike, what do I do in this situation? That type of thing. Or this is how I'm feeling. So I think it's very important. And my third thing was the parents. You have some difficult conversations. I think what we're seeing, a lot of parents want to be involved, but it's also letting them know how they can be involved. Because we assume a lot of times that parents know exactly what they're supposed to do all the time. And this is in any sport. And so sitting down with the parents and also saying, hey, these are our expectations as parents. This is how we need you to support, your child, our student athletes, that they're going to come home tired. Make sure they sit down at that kitchen table and do their homework. Make sure they get enough to eat. Make sure they get enough rest. Make sure they're doing all the things they're supposed to do. And it just builds up better men in our society.
Yeah,
Excellent. I love that. Checking on the coaches too, right? I like that. And also taking it off the field and the expectations from parents. And Chad, you said sleep. We are always talking about sleep here. always. But yes, that's amazing. I really like that.
Right. I think the most important thing is you're giving direction for the parents, because I think that is a big mistake, as Chad said, that we just all assume parents know what to do with their student athlete, and they don't. And so you guys as coaches being able to give that direction to parents just makes for a better team effort to make sure that their little one or their young one succeeds.
Right.
As Chad stated too, as far as those difficult conversations with parents, is like you guys stated earlier about the pressures. That's one of the pressures where you got to have those difficult conversations, because everybody thinks their kid is a D1 talented athlete. You know what I mean? But sometimes you got to have those difficult conversations, and parents want to know why my kid ain't playing, why my kid's not. I think he's great. And for us, like we got it sometimes as the coaches, we got to bring the bearer bad news, and say, hey,
Mhm.
he may not start this year, but continue to work hard. There's always opportunities, so because and I think that's also deals, hurts people's mental, where you get that pressure from home or social media wanting to be great, and
Mhm.
sometimes you got to be realistic about the gifts that God gave you, shoot, I wanted to be a D1 athlete too, but in high school, God gifted me being 5'6", 130 pounds, so I knew I wasn't going nowhere. You know what I mean? But some people are delusional, and so you
Right.
got to have those difficult conversations. And you said you wanted an example about those difficult conversations. Had a kid 2 years ago, defensive lineman. He
Mhm.
was he ended up being defensive player of the year for Frederick County.
Wow.
But
Wow.
he was 5'7", 260 pounds. You're not
Mm.
going to a D1 school being 5'7", 260 pounds as a defensive lineman. So, and he couldn't understand for the life of him, like, man, God, coaches, y'all don't treat me fair. I should be getting all these offers too, this and that and the other. And I'm like, there's a, there's levels to this. And you got to
Mhm.
understand that. I can't go to a college and tell them, oh, you need to take my guy. I said, at the end of the day, it's a business. He
And
gets paid to do his job. So,
mhm.
Mhm.
But there's also something to say about being on a team. I think being in a team and connecting
Mhm.
and learning and watching is just as important as just the amount of time that one would play, I would believe. And so I think it's an interesting conversation. So, gentlemen, how do the kids look at mental health? Do you think? Are they more aware? You look at all the pro athletes who are standing up, drawing boundaries around their mental health nowadays, especially women, because we were going to do it before a man does. But how are you seeing more of your athletes being more aware about it? Because social media is also such a force in their life. So, what do you see from that vantage point?
I think especially with the pro athletes becoming advocates for mental health, it makes it more digestible, right? It makes feelings and emotions less of this mushy thing, right? Talking to clients that, are athletes, they've referenced, I think, JJ McCartney. I think he was a quarterback in Michigan, and he starts with meditation and all
Mhm.
these things to prep himself. So I think it makes it more digestible. It makes it a conversation that they're willing to have.
I think that's interesting too, even down to the words that we use, like words that we might use for women might not be, as Udoka says, digestible for men,
Right.
but maybe it's a figure, like you said, this particular athlete and his ability to really just use meditation, or what we would call in therapy world mindfulness, to calm himself, to neutralize himself, to settle himself, or get himself ready and prepared for a game. We might have to learn new language to be able to then give it to the kids so that it is digestible. And that Terrell said something really good about social media. And we talk about social media a lot too. And in this instance, as we've been talking about, as Chad said, and Mike is talking about the wins, we can find ways to win with social media when impacting young athletes and their mental health.
Right.
So
they're able to follow an athlete and see through social media, Instagram, TikTok, things that they do to prepare themselves.
Right.
And take care of their mental wellness. We talk a lot about mental wellness being, you don't have to have necessarily a mental disorder, but mental wellness talks about your just overall well-being.
Yeah.
And so I think that's good for kids. Did anybody else see anything differently or hear anything different?
I think our kids are aware because of social media. I know with our football program, what we've done over the last couple of years is we built in a yoga day. So usually we break down Wednesdays are what we call like our light Wednesdays. So what we would do is before practice, we'll take the kids and we'll do some yoga with them. So because we're aware during the week, and we all know football can be so stressful. With Monday, you're game planning. Tuesday is your big physical day. You're hitting, you're going, live with your teammates. Wednesday, we try to bring it down for you just to get you to decompose so that your mind is a little more relaxed because you're building up for that big game on Friday. And we talked about pressure. Pressure is always out there because of one, social media. Two, you have your friends, right? They're always, are y'all going to win this week? Are y'all going to, how are you going to do? So, you got pressure with them, and then you got pressure from us as coaches, trying to make sure that our kids are performing at a high level. So for us, I think they are noticing that my mental state has to be in a good spot so that when Friday comes, I can perform the way I know that I can perform. But again, for us, we build in Wednesdays, like I said, is our yoga day. So we got these guys out here trying to get flexible, which is kind of hilarious. But the same token, it's all relaxing in the same mode. Because, yoga, you could do some of these little maneuvers that just kind of relax.
I'm laughing because I'm really just trying to imagine Mike doing some yoga and stretching and doing all these things.
I would say and I tell my wife this all the time. I tell the kids, look, I'm still a former athlete, so I still got a little get up in me. Let me be old now. I can still run around.
Yeah.
Oh, that is so good.
Yeah, the key to that conversation, though, is we have it as well here at ABH with clinicians, and Udoka can speak to it. If we're not right, as clinicians, we aren't right to work with our clients. So our mental wellness, well-being, mental health, whatever you want to call it, has to be on point so that we can help others, because we take in a lot of information, not so good information, and it can weigh on you. And so it's pressure in that sense. And so we have to make sure we do things that make us take care of our well-being.
Yeah. I had a friend who said he coaches basketball, and he said, well, when the team wins, you're the kid's best friend. And when they lose, the coach becomes like the worst enemy. So I'm pretty sure that all of you can relate in some kind of way. But gentlemen, listen, we are wrapping up. This has been such an amazing conversation. I hope we can have like a part 2 or, part 3, because we had part 2 once before. But listen, before we go, we always try to empower and encourage. And since we're talking about young athletes and future athletes here, those who may be watching near and far, we want you to kind of end with giving some either advice or some insight into mental health for young men. What would be something that you would encourage young men who are, and young women who are interested in being athletes, but when it comes to their mental health, what can you leave us with today?
I'll always, and this is, I guess, like I said, again, my son making me vulnerable and being a softie these days. But I feel like it's okay to seek counseling. You know what I mean? It's like having a car. There's nothing wrong with getting preventive maintenance.
Oh, I like that.
And because I think we all harbor, someone told me this, which was interesting. We all harbor some type of trauma, and we all deal with it in different ways, and some of it's unresolved. So, my son tells me all the time, I feel like he's full. He lives in a nice house, two-parent income, but he always tells me, Dad, you don't know what I go through. And so, so I feel like, if the kids don't want to talk to the parents, they need to talk to someone. So,
so I would tell them, one, never shy away from adversity. Adversity makes you stronger. And I think, a lot of times, with the transfer portal trickling down to high school, with all these things, people are quick to run away for a place they think is better without dealing with their own stuff. So adversity is not a bad thing. I think it makes you a lot stronger. And I think if you need help, ask for help. That's always super, super important. And take care of yourself. Take care of your family. family, as an athlete, as a coach, family is so, so important. And it doesn't just have to be your nuclear family, but surround yourself with people, I always say, or give you wings, not weights, right? People are going to uplift you, not drag you down. And the third thing I would say is don't let your outside overcompensate for your inside. So, I know a lot of kids, and I'm a lineman, so Mike probably laughing at me right now, but they like to put on all the swag and beat their chest after they touch down and humiliate the other person, all that stuff. And I've found through my years of coaching, a lot of times that's to compensate for something that's missing inside. So if you do something great, man, that's great, but help someone else do something great as well. Help someone that might be younger than you, show them the way, and always come back to help you. And I love what Mr. Terrell said about maintenance of a car. That's so, so important.
Right.
So it really goes back to what I said earlier, right? Thoughts, feelings, and emotions. When it comes to sports, these are things that you have to manage. In order to be, I think, your optimal athlete, you want to make sure that you're taking care of these things. So if that means talking to somebody, please go do it. But in addition to that, I think find something that doesn't require you to think all that much. Find something that allows you to feel present. And I find that sports is that outlet, right? I think we know as clinicians, a lot of people come to us dysregulated, right? And in order to deal with some of those things, we have to find ways to get them grounded. And I know that sports can be that outlet. If it's not sports for you, find something different, but find something that allows you to feel present and allows your mind to rest.
Mm-hmm. Very good.
Nice.
For me, just to piggyback on that, I have to say and agree with you have to have me time. So whatever that is, if it's 5-10 minutes, give yourself that avenue to have your personal time. If it's listening to music for 5 minutes, if it's reading a book for 5 minutes, you need to decompose and relax yourself in order to keep moving forward. And then you're right, family's huge. Surround yourself with like minds because they're going to build you up rather than tear you down. And then the last thing I would say, it's the one thing as a coach I can't coach is energy and effort. If you can bring me all the energy and effort, we're going to be leaps and bounds on where we can strive and where we can go to the next level.
I want to give everybody what kind of clap do you call it? What they do? Oh, that was a golf clap.
Yeah.
Different sport. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time and being available today. You all dropped so many gems and so many takeaways for myself, I'm sure for Wendy.
For our audience.
Yeah, for our audience. And I think this is a panel that is necessary. I really do. Talking about mental health and sports, I think it should go beyond just this podcast. I really do.
It's ever changing.
Yeah.
So it's super important.
Yeah. Wendy, before we go, you have any last words to say?
It was football. I love the conversation. It's sports. I was an athlete as well. And I just appreciate you guys just dropping the knowledge about sports and mental health around football, because people can relate to that. Young men can relate to this sport. And so you're being able to communicate, affect change, be good leaders, good mentors, just only makes it better for our kids coming up, whether they stay in sports, whether they become a professional athlete or something else in life. You are teaching them invaluable skills and lessons. So I appreciate that.
Yeah. All right. So this is the end of our podcast. Gentlemen, again, if you could come off your mics and just say a goodbye for our audience, we thank you so much. Just say your names again.
This is Mike. Appreciate you guys giving me the time and energy.
Udoka, thank you for having me again, Danielle and Wendy.
Absolutely.
This is Chad. Thank you again for having me. It was wonderful.
Mrs. Terrell, thanks again for having me.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. Much appreciated. This is Making a Difference in Mental Health. I'm Danielle.
I'm Wendy.
Stay tuned again. This is Making a Difference in Mental Health, where we're always striving to make a difference in mental health. See you next time.